Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth, I believe, of these live streams, which I'm still slightly conceitedly calling Tom Nicholas Live. I would any suggestions for better, less me-centered names would be much appreciated. Apologies that the main camera is not playing ball today, so we've just got my webcam, which is slightly less glamorous, but does the job. For those of you that have been here before, thank you for coming back and thank you for engaging with these. It's very much the fact that people have got stuck in, which has made me sort of want to do a few more. If you're new, then welcome. And thank you as ever to patrons for supporting what I do, etc., and making all of this possible. I'm delighted to once again this week be joined by an esteemed guest. We've had some great conversations over the past few weeks with Tristan Johnson of Step Back History and with JT from Second Thought. And it is fantastic to be joined this week by the one and only Grace Lee. Great.
Hello.
From the channel What's So Great About That. How are you, Grace?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. I was just saying to you a moment ago that
We we kind of just did
we
that, and now I feel like we're doing it
yeah,
performatively.
yeah. Now we're doing it for the benefit of other people.
Yeah.
I'm going to make the same joke. It's a lovely day and exactly the kind of day where you want to close the curtains, close all the doors, and boil to death
Yeah.
whilst making a video, which I feel like is a
Making some
big part of my
content.
life at this point. I suppose the joy of you not appearing on camera probably means you don't ever have to close all the curtains, or maybe for audio, do you?
For audio, yeah. And I mean, I have to like, I recently acquired an acoustic blanket, which is like a fancy kind of blanket that's very big and heavy, and then I construct a fort out of a canvas stretchers and this giant blanket, and then I crawl inside like a little goblin. So it's not the most comfortable of setups.
It's probably not how like Rihanna does her vocal tracks,
It's not how I imagine it.
but worth it. Would you recommend?
It's the blanket's great. Like I think I get it was the most recent video I did is the only one I've recorded with the blanket, and I think it's actually better quality than what I was getting from a legit sound studio
Okay,
that I've been using since September. So
okay,
that's my acoustic blanket review.
yeah, like Amazon. I love
5 out of 5
I
recommend.
one of my sort of hobbies occasionally is just to read Amazon reviews. Particularly like the 3 stars are always good, where people have a very complex view of something like a hole punch. But do you? So
A nuanced take.
I'm going to try and cobble together an intro for your incredible work for those watching that might not have seen it. I mean, the video essays that you create cover like a huge range of topics from the color blue quite recently to various sort of themes in cinema, whether it's sort of David Lynch's use of language in his particular sort of oeuvre, whether it's trained throughout all of cinematic history, from it's the Lumiere brothers that first is that
Yeah.
film
Um,
first did film.
yeah. The yeah. That's I believe that is the technical term. Yeah. The train arriving at the something station. I forget what it's called.
Yeah, and through to sort of Snowpiercer that we were just chatting about before we went live. Then, I think what I love about your work is your eye for the visual in particular. I think lots of and it's not necessarily that you don't do this, but that I think lots of the film channels on this platform sort of look at film as part of a kind of storytelling culture, I would say. And I think what I really love about your work is the way you are sort of enamored by that visuality and then also applying that to other things. I think particularly you often talk about like visual art as well, and also just your massive knowledge of everything that's being committed to celluloid, possibly. Uh, um,
It's really not that extensive.
but you do have this real like sort of. I'm sure you're not doing yourself justice there. You do have a real like expansive knowledge of stuff that has been filmed, which I think you apply in really interesting ways that I don't think anyone else really does in quite the same way. There's a real uniqueness to what you do, and you sort of bring all that into the editing of your video essays as well, which is always amazing. Yeah, is always just incredible, and the way that helps you to get your points across. But do you want to give your own sort of description of how you would describe what you do? I'm always
How I would describe myself. I never know. I never know how to describe myself. And whenever anyone asks, "Oh, what's your channel about?" I'm like, and I'm like, "Don't worry about it," and I run away. But I wouldn't describe myself as a film channel, and it's that that classification continues to plague me. Because I feel like my interest is in art, and that covers many a medium. So I'm not a cinephile. And I feel like I don't have that much of an extensive knowledge of film. Certainly not compared to people who I feel like really know about film. But then maybe that's my projection. I don't know. I don't know how much those people know.
Is it Dunning-Kruger curve where where when you know nothing, you think you know nothing, and then you know a bit, and you think you know everything, and then
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I think it is interesting how I mean when you exist on a sort of public platform of some level, people do apply descriptions to you of what you do, and sometimes that is slightly different to how you would perceive your own stuff. I think I sometimes feel that as well.
I guess because there's just most video essay channels are about film, and because they do talk about film, that's I just get put into that category when I think, particularly last year, I didn't talk about film that much. I can't remember what videos they've made last year now. I don't have them in front of me. But I was more interested in like digital culture and the internet and video games and literature. I feel like I'm more excited about those things than I am about film.
Sometimes it's a case of I know I often find that it's often film or TV that I go to because that's the thing that exists more prominently in sort of popular discourse, and therefore in making a YouTube video and hoping people will want to watch it, then that's the thing that like is
you can sucker them in with
yeah
a thing they've seen.
yeah whatever it is.
And also, you've got ready-made visual material, which for someone like me who doesn't film anything, makes things a lot easier when you can just take the thing and show it rather than having to make graphics, which I'm increasingly having to do with talking about things other than film.
It does take ages, but I mean I think the way you chop up film is really interesting, and the way in which you make it do what you want it to do as much as what it's already doing is really interesting. You kind of like bend it to your will. Was that always something that you wanted to do? Was that something that you sort of just developed over time? And I mean, how do you go about the process of like thinking of what clips you're going to use for a certain moment? Do things just jump to you, or?
Yeah, I think it's not so much something I want to do as it is just something that I do with little control over it. But I started editing by making fan videos, and I think I've kept that kind of aesthetic in terms of cutting things very fast and editing things to music as well as the cadence of what I'm saying and trying to like create a certain sense of movement. But I think it's not something that I'm trying to do. It's just something like I just see things and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's how it should be. So it's more instinctual than it is planned when it comes to the editing side. And in terms of how I choose things, it's probably half. Like when I'm writing a script or making notes, I'll put in brackets certain scenes that I'm thinking of. But then the other half, it's just luck. Sometimes I get comments being like, "Oh, you must have thought this out like so meticulously in order to match these scenes with what you're saying," and like it's just luck.
I mean, Opolitico is saying in the chat about this, almost like a montage, and I think it's almost like assemblage. I'd almost call it the way you put things together. Do you find it like? Do do you find it informs the way your thinking process when you're writing what you're writing, or does it all come second when you're then thinking about the visual to go on top?
It mostly comes after the script. I think with if I'm talking about like something that's like a moving image thing like film or TV, I will rewatch. I'll get like an idea of what I want to talk about, then rewatch whatever it is in order to take proper notes on like the specifics of the thing, and then I'll write some stuff that it's like the jigsaw part of the process where I've just got a bunch of notes that's all just like I'll get an idea and I'm like, where should I put this? I don't know. I'll just randomly pick the middle of this document and I'll put it in there and I'll arrange it later. So once I've arranged everything into like my usual 3 paragraph structure, then I'll go through like I'll open up the film in my video editing software and then take out like go through it in that sense and cut out things that I think could be useful. But mostly because there's also because I'm very rarely just talking about the one thing, even if I'm supposedly supposed to be talking about that one thing. And my video on Lisa Hannawalt was originally going to be on BoJack Horseman, and then Tuca and Bertie ended up being quite a big part of that. And originally I was just downloading clips from YouTube, and then it was only in the editing when I came to the editing process that I was like, oh, I'll just download the whole show because I need more scenes from this than I thought I would. And then it was just a case of just going through all the episodes, and I'll pick out stuff that I think is I could maybe make a metaphor out of, but then also stuff that I think just looks pretty, and I'll save a lot of those for the end of the video because I think I usually cheat with my conclusions in that I'll save all of the nicest footage to last to make like this really beautiful conclusion, and then I'll just say the last sentence in a way that makes it sound meaningful, and then I'll cut to a cool song for the credits.
You do have the great thing of the music fading up and then written and edited by Grace Lee.
It's my favorite part of the video.
I mean, surely editing the last bit's always going to be the favorite part because you know it's sort of done. That's really interesting. That's really interesting. I often find when I write videos that I do very much sort of basically write an essay and then just go, okay, now I've got to turn this into something that is visual. I think increasingly I'm trying to think about write more of a script, I suppose, than just an essay. Although that's slightly in tension with wanting to have a lovely script to put up on my Patreon, which I can like have as a nice document rather than like a thing with loads of bits on it. I've yet
because I also put my scripts on my Patreon, and I just usually take out all the bits because my bits are in I use OneNote to basically do the writing, and then once it's done in its little sections, I'll open it in Word and then just have it as literally the things that I've said rather than all of the other crap that I also put in there. So by the time I'm posting it on Patreon, it's more like an essay than a like all these notes to self. Put this on the screen. Make this graphic. This is a reference to this. Research this more. I don't think you know what you're talking about. All that gets taken out before I post it.
I mean, there is also a sense of you saying there sort of about researching more. There is also a real sense of a deep engagement with writing about whatever it is you're talking about as well. I mean, I was rewatching your video on the color blue, which is wonderful, and particularly liking the was it the Bart Brigade? Was that the hashtag?
Oh yeah.
I would also like to consider myself a member of the Bart Brigade, and
Proud member.
and which is probably an interesting sort of analogy for what you do in the sense of like particularly mythologies where it's sort of like here's this he sort of goes, oh, here's this thing I'm going to write about, and then it sort of zooms gradually out and suddenly you're not reading about the soap, suddenly you're reading about the world and everything within it. Are there any particular sort of when you're writing when you're thinking about your essay writing, are there any or sort of script writing, are there any particular writers about art, about culture that are sort of like big inspirations on what you do? Or?
It's not something that I do consciously, but I do like Roland Barthes a lot, and I'm aware of the similarities between what I do and what he
That's
does.
good.
But I don't know
That's
which
a
came.
compliment, I think. I don't think.
I don't know which came first. Like I think I'm drawn to that because that's naturally what I like to do. Um, I I have recently been listening to some podcasts where I'm like, I'd love to be able to emulate what these podcasts are doing. Particularly the Anthropocene Reviewed
Yeah.
by John Green, and Heavyweight, which is hosted by Jonathan Goldstein.
Okay.
And he has this kind of noir detective style of narration that's that manages to be funny and direct at the same time, which is always the style of humor that I want to go for, where the fastest way to make a point is to make a joke. But I haven't been able to implement these styles into my own writing yet. I just listen to them and like, I wish I could do that, and then I continue to do what I've always been doing,
I do.
and not try to push myself at all.
I do love the Anthropocene Reviewed in. I mean, John Green has a similar way of, and I don't think I've read any of his books at all. I
No, I
don't
haven't.
think. I think I watched a bit of Looking for Alaska. That was on the BBC a while ago. But
Yeah, I saw the BBC adaptation of that, but I haven't read the books and I haven't seen his films, and I haven't really seen Vlogbrothers. It's really just the
yeah,
podcast.
no, I think I'm the same. I feel like he's one of those people that has a different uh, a different way of working for different audiences. And I think
Mm.
I was just like, I don't feel like Looking for Alaska is necessarily aimed at me, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It can exist in the world and not necessarily be uh, directed at me. But yeah, I love his way with the Anthropocene Reviewed, where again it's a similar thing of starting off with something small, um, and then slowly zooming out. There's one about a song, and I can't remember what the song is, and he talks about the moment at which he's either intentionally or unintentionally listened to that song
Yeah.
in his life, and they've often been like big, heartbreaking moments, and I like that is such a heartbreaking uh, sort of audio essay.
Mm.
And there's something particular about the
Yeah.
podcast form where it's just someone whispering in your ear is really nice.
Yeah.
And I've often wondered, part of me's had like half a idea penciled in a imaginary notebook that at some point I want to make something about podcasts and like the busyness of life, and then the thing of like just having someone talking
Mm.
in your ear, which is quite nice. Um,
Yeah.
um,
I really love the way that he manages to draw on like his own personal experience and personal anecdotes in a way that's still engaging just for a general audience, and a way that still seems relevant and that doesn't just seem entirely self-indulgent, at least not to me.
someone in the chat saying that Anthropocene Reviewed is awesome. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
also love the way it just comes back to the stars at the end, and that then just again reduces that thing to a human thing where we just want to go 3 out of 5. That was fine,
Yeah.
which is quite cool. I mean, in terms of like your process for becoming an incredible YouTube video essay person, um,
Thank you.
what was was there any, I don't know, what gave you your love of um, sort of engaging with culture in a kind of critical way, and wanting to talk about that? Because I think one thing that I was saying before, one thing that comes across in your videos is a real sort of love for the things you're talking about. The
Mm.
internet, or at least used to be, quite a cynical place where you spoke about something to say it was rubbish, or that it was sort of wrong in these ways. And I think what you tend to do is really mostly draw the good out of things, even if something as a whole
Yeah.
is slightly flawed, maybe. Was there any particular moments that gave you this? I don't know. I mean, my impression from watching your work is that when you engage with something, whether it's that you're watching a film, whether it's you're in a gallery, or whether it's that you're reading something, that uh, your minds, your neurons are firing. I mean, A, is that the case? And B, was there anything in particular that sort of started you down that road?
Not that I can remember, but then I feel like my memory of my like early years is very patchy.
Yeah, I'm the same. I can barely remember primary school.
I feel like, yeah, I was recently talking to a friend who went to the same school as me, and she was being like, "Oh, you remember when we were in this class doing this thing?" And I'm like, I can't even picture the building of our school that I was only at like maybe 8 years ago. It's not been that long. Yeah, like lots of people seem to have these cool origin stories, and maybe I do and I can't remember. But nothing's left an impact, obviously.
Not
But I'm
you weren't like
definitely
at the Tate Modern and you were like, this
no,
is I've had an epiphany.
no, and yeah, I know. Like I used to not like contemporary art or like performance art or video games
Well,
really,
like
and
this
now I feel like
viscerally, did you like?
those are my favorite things. No, I just didn't care
Okay,
about
you're
them.
saying not for
Whereas
me.
now they're like my favorite things, and I don't know. Like it's just been a gradual process. I can remember the point at which I realized it's not that performance art is bad. It's just that I've only ever seen bad performance art.
Mm.
Which was because I studied fine art for undergrad, and it was like I think I was in first year, and we had one of those group crits, and someone did some performance art, and I was like, oh hey, that was really good. Who knew? Who knew performance art could be good?
I think
But I think
there's certain forms, particularly kind of like marginal in some way forms like that, where I mean my background's in theatre, and the when people see a bad show at the theatre, they go, "Oh, theatre's terrible. I hate
yeah,
theatre." Whereas if you, I mean, people subscribe to comic books where they can go, "Oh, I hated the last year of this comic book, but I'm holding out. I'm holding out." Like, and don't then expand their opinion to everything that Marvel
yeah,
say has ever or Image or whoever has ever published. It's quite interesting that I think the sort of smaller art forms which are often slightly more avant-garde in some ways, and so maybe do push sort of horizons of expectation slightly more. But people do like then apply the label from that one particular thing to everything. I mean, I do the same with. I think I've had similar things with performance art where I've been like,
yeah.
this is not for me. I've seen people with
This is very uncomfortable.
Tupperwares of pretend poo, um,
Oh
pretending
yeah.
to eat it, and I was like, oh, this is bad. But then I've seen things where someone has stood in front of a few signs that have changed every so often, and I've been like, oh, this is incredible. This is life changing stuff.
Yeah. Marginal media is definitely my preferred kind of media.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that sort of some of the video games you've covered, and they've tended to be like sort of indie games, and often with like
Yeah.
I've not played getting over it,
Getting over it. Yeah.
not played that, um, but
It's my favorite game.
uh,
I love it so
but
much.
yeah, I do want to try it out, and like Untitled Goose Game. Um, what is it in particular that draws you to those sort of like weird? Maybe not the right word, but like there's something about them that I mean they don't sort of conform to our
Mm.
expectations of like AAA video games, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah, I think that was why for a long time, like I didn't get into video games um until like a couple of years, maybe 4 years ago. And it was because all I knew this has really been the same with any type of art. Like I started out not being interested in anything. And then I'll learn about something that's a bit outside of um like the general consensus of what this media is, and then I'll get really into it. And I think it's happened with music, with film, with art, and most recently with video games, which is perhaps the final frontier. I don't know, dance. I guess I'm not interested in dance. That maybe that'll be in a few years. I'll get really into dance. Who knows?
No, I've been to the Birmingham Royal Ballet once. There was two intervals, and not for me. People seem to like
But
it,
maybe it was just that
but
one.
yeah,
It's like it's the fake poo all over again.
yeah, it's
It was just that one ballet that you didn't like. Who
and there
knows?
must. I think there has been things I've enjoyed as well, and really weird Horizon of Expectation pushing stuff where it's been like there's been naked people, and but I've been like, which usually if someone just describes that to me, I'd be like, oh, okay, but then I really enjoyed it. I mean, there is something in games. I mean, like Untitled Goose Game, about the way in which they just embrace their oddness. They're like, we're going to
Mm.
have a few mechanics that we play on, and we're going to really go into those. It's going to be really strange, but we're just going to embrace that rather than try and cover it up in any kind of way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I also there was I think you pulled out something about the way in which that game had like an element of it weirdly captured British some element of
Yeah.
perceived Britishness in that like keep calm, carry on, stiff upper lip,
Mm. Yeah.
even though there's a goose trying to steal the radio or whatever.
Everything.
Um, I miss that moment actually. Looking back from now, as we all sit in lockdown, etc. Looking back on that particular cultural moment where we were all just playing a game with a little goose that ran around, they seem like simpler times, don't they?
Ah, October.
Yeah, was it only October? Oh goodness,
Those were the days.
oh goodness. Um, but yeah, I love sort of like weird things like that are always
Mm.
quite cool, and also what they because they also tend to reveal something about the mainstream stuff in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like this is what I mean in saying that I'm interested in art. That's like art can be any medium, but there's a difference between something like Getting Over It and something like Mario Kart. I've recently got Mario Kart and I do love Mario Kart. It's been one of my favorite games since childhood, and I've only recently got a Switch. And it's the first time exciting. But there's definitely like that's what I think of when I think of video games, whereas Getting Over It is more like an interactive experience.
Mm,
While
mm,
it's as gamey as that kind of game can be in that it is a game and it is difficult. Whereas the video I'm working on at the moment is on the beginner's guide, which is barely a game. It's more like an interactive experience that you're walking around some games while someone talks about them to you,
oh yeah, I've
and
heard about
there isn't a
this.
lot of gameplay. It's similar. It's kind of like a precursor to Getting Over It in that it's talking about the games as you play them.
And you've got like an
Um,
audio track, but it's a bit whether they're telling the truth or not is a bit
yes, yeah,
yeah
yeah.
yeah. I need
It definitely pulls the rug out from under you.
I need to play that. I think I've also got. I think something I love. I also love games that are quite relatively short. There's something about
Yes,
being
yeah.
able to
This is only
pack
like
an
2 hours.
experience and to say something
Yeah.
and say it with sort of brevity and say it
Mhm.
well quickly, um, which is possibly something I need to learn in making my videos. But that thing of just being able to like
Uh,
do one thing but do it really well and then sort of be happy with that and go away. Like
yeah.
Goose Game could have had so many more levels,
Mhm.
could have gone on indefinitely. But there was something lovely about the way it sort of did what it did in 5 levels, and
Yeah.
then
You're able to have a narrative arc that you can experience pretty
mm,
much all in one go.
mm, um, yeah. And so, was there any particular? That's really interesting. It's sort of just just a gradual thing of just developing a. I mean, did your art degree push you towards? Was that something that made you suddenly want to talk and discuss and think about the media that you're encountered with in different ways, or was it
Yeah,
just
I
sort
think
of
I was doing it before then because I always loved English as a subject,
mm,
and I liked writing essays. But definitely the way that I think about things, I think, was very much shaped by Goldsmiths, which is where I did my undergrad. I think they have a certain holistic way of looking at things. Like we basically didn't study art or art history at all. We studied philosophy and sociology.
mm,
and barely talked about art. It was all about film, video games, just ideas
Mm.
in the abstract. And so that's definitely, that was like the catalyst, I guess, of who I am now.
I was, I mean, I'm doing a PhD and I teach undergrads, and we sort of do a similar thing where actually we talk, we're often talking about the world as much as we're talking about the particular
Mm.
thing that we're sort of focusing, the particular sort of subject matter. It's as much about the approach. Um, and and it's been really interesting to see that become really popular on the internet. That kind of like taking a particularly critical approach to something. Um, and in fact, I was reading an interesting Twitter thread probably a few weeks back. The the prime scholarship of our time on Twitter threads, where it was where they're sort of saying that actually now there's almost a complete lack of interest in like history of art or history of
Mm.
film or literature, and that maybe there's something in a sort of gap to that in a little bit,
Mm.
in a little way. I know. I don't know if you've read much Terry Eagleton at all.
No.
He's like mainly like a literary theorist, but he talks. He's got a book about sort of theory. It's sort of called After Theory, and he talks about like how now the main thing that people do is come up with their critical theory-induced takes on Friends, which at that
Mhm.
time hadn't been put on Netflix, so it was slightly less of the moment, I think. But and that almost to say that you just to go, oh, actually, I quite like Citizen Kane is now a like boring opinion. Like
Yeah.
that's like, oh, why would you say that? You haven't you got like a hot take on
Yeah.
whatever the latest thing is, which is kind of interesting because it's sort of a leveling of culture, which is very positive. Like
Mm.
some of those old hierarchies of like the super high art and the stuff
Yeah.
for normal people, sort of breaking away is quite nice.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I think talking about why something that everyone knows is good is really boring. that's,
mm, mm,
that's why I like to take things like animation and video essays that aren't talked about in a high art context as much, and then force it. I will apply Roland Barthes to this thing. And that's the thing that I find funny mostly, to take things that are like high culture and talk about them with memes, and take things that are low quote culture and talk about them with like Derrida.
mm. Because there is
It's
something
that
about
that
like the little stuff.
juxtaposition. It's just
Yeah.
funny.
Um, because yeah, who's to say what's culturally
Mm.
important and not? Um, and yeah, and actually, there's something about there is two strains, which I think particularly used to exist on YouTube and the internet more probably a few years ago. Although I think they're still around. Of either this is a thing that's good, and I'm just going to remind you how it's good, or here's a thing you think is good, but actually
Yeah.
it's terrible. There's a coffee cup in the background, therefore this whole thing is
Yeah.
rubbish. Which actually it's been really interesting over the past like probably quite a while now, probably like 7 or so years of actually really interesting stuff going through, like whether it's like every frame of painting or lessons from the screenplay of those really like nuanced
Mm.
takes. Um, Maybe Ideas Channel, which I've not watched. I feel like I need to go back and watch.
Oh, yeah. I love Idea Channel. That's another influence, I guess. Although I didn't find it until maybe after my first year of making videos. But yeah, love Ideas Channel.
Yeah, I need to go back and try and watch whatever at least still feels mildly present. Because I'm sure some
Mm.
of it has aged a little bit. Um, but I do need to go back
Yeah, I
and
don't
watch that
know.
sometime. Um, what are the channels that you enjoy? Are there any particular, or like, they might be YouTube channels, there might be other things. Is there anything in particular that
Mm.
you particularly enjoy at the moment?
Um, I'll just get up my
You and your
my
husband.
subscriptions. I can remember. I don't watch a whole lot of video essay channels.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel bad that I don't watch more stuff. Like there's something nice about relaxing watching And this is kind of research because I did just make a video on Animal Crossing, but I kind of like just we're going to wander around this 5-star island on Animal Crossing. Like at the end of the day, sometimes that's sort of what you want to do
Yeah.
rather than
I didn't
uh,
realize you just made a video on Animal Crossing. I've literally just started playing Animal Crossing, so I'll
um,
definitely watch that when
I'm
we're done here.
I
It's
feel
very
like I'm
exciting.
just at a point which is sort of make or break in whether I'm going to continue playing it for 6 months or whether I'm going to wind down. Like I feel like I've done some of the main stuff, and now I'm like I would need to rearrange all the trees on my island, and I'm either going to get really into that or I'm going to be like, nah, I can't. Can't be bothered.
Yeah, having been to like a couple because I've only been playing it for like 2 weeks, so I'm still very much in the early stages.
Hmm.
And having been to some friends' islands who are much further ahead, I'm like, oh, I don't like this. I want to stay in this nice wilderness stage before everything gets built up. But
Yeah,
hopefully, I can. I'm hoping I can find a way of keeping that. Now that I feel like I've been warned, I've got these messages from the future about what this turns into, and I don't want to build any roads. I don't want to build proper bridges. I want to have trees everywhere, and then Twin Peaks style, just have like random objects. I bought an anatomical model today when I was playing, and I'm like, I'm just going to put that in the woods somewhere, and that's what I want to do with my island.
it's like a terrifying. I mean, I'm the
Yeah.
total opposite. I've just got the paths thing, and I very much like, and I've got like a row of houses, and I'm like, this is going to be sort of very
Yeah, that's
planned.
exactly what I want to
Yeah,
avoid.
we've got completely different paths.
And it's like you don't have to eat or sleep. So there's no need to make a
Mm,
bathroom or a bedroom or a kitchen. So I'm gonna have a room that's just full of fish, and I'm gonna catch every kind of fish, and I'm gonna pile them up like as a wall of fish. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you can pile fish on top of each other. Maybe you can't do that. I'll be very sad if you can't, because I'm imagining like a wall of fish, and
I
they're in those tiny tanks that are only just big enough to fit the body of the fish in.
I can't even turn around.
And they just like suspended there, and it's going to be horrific.
There is a lot
That's
of
my
sort of eeriness to it in the stuff like
yeah,
you can get like a cat litter tray, but I mean, A, you
but
can't
no
have a
cat.
cat, but also if there is a cat around, they're probably a villager on your island that like exists as a
Oh,
sentient being. And so
yeah,
what's the are they just going to come into your house and like use
yeah.
them?
You can't use any of the items that you buy. Like it's a pure aesthetic experience. All you can do is buy things and display things. It's so weird.
There's almost yeah,
There's
there's
no
almost
responsibilities,
you can,
not
I
even to
think
bodily
you can
functions.
punch the punch bag. I've got a punch bag and you
Oh,
can punch it.
I have.
And I think if you stand next to an instrument, you can press a button. You can it will play a random note.
Yeah, you can play one note.
Um, yeah, it is weird. I'm sort of. I mean, it's just the perfect game for now. I think that's the.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
Yeah, the real selling point is that you can go to friends' islands and be in this kind of virtual but physical space with another person. That's just very exciting
yeah,
when
I
everyone's locked in their houses.
I feel like there's amazing videos to be made and things to be written about the present experience, but that probably any of that maybe if they're written too soon, they might not. I don't know. This
Yeah,
really weird. Like I really wanted to make a video at some point about just the weirdness of
yeah.
the moment. Um,
But I
possibly,
think the moment is the time to make
yeah.
that video.
Um,
I feel the same way. There was like a few weeks when lockdown started that I only wanted to consume things that were to do with lockdown and the
mm,
coronavirus. And now I don't want any of that. And I'm like, oh, you're talking about lockdown? That's a bit boring. That's a bit obvious.
yeah,
Talk about
yeah.
something else. Jeez.
I mean, there was probably a time where
Um,
I could have told you like the infection rates on every single day, and then just
yeah,
after a while, I was like,
yeah, I was like on the Guardian's website on their like rolling updates, just constantly checking back whenever there was a new story about what was happening. And now that just seems like that's just not what I want to do.
mm,
Like I'm over it now.
I
That was
know.
so week 2 of lockdown.
Yeah. I don't know how many weeks it's been though. I've totally become lost in it. But yeah, for ages I really wanted to make
Yeah,
a video about
9 or 10.
something, and then I think it was so Slavoj Žižek brought out a book about the pandemic, and I was like, he's often great and all, but like, what of use is he gonna genuinely have to
Yeah,
say in a book that he's written during like in a
two
feverish
weeks,
week
a
of the
weekend, a
first
long
lockdown,
weekend
quite
on the
possibly
bank holiday.
helped with some substances. Like it's not going to be it's not going to be like the thing a year later is probably going to be the really useful take on it.
Yeah.
Um, but it's
Yeah,
interesting how
and
it.
the video I'm doing now on the beginner's guide, I originally picked that topic like when lockdown started because it was like this experience about isolation and what happens when you only have yourself to talk to and
Mm,
you only have your own perspective and you're not able to get that outside perspective on yourself. But the video is not about that at all anymore because this is like week 10 of lockdown. This it's not the time. It's
it's
going in a completely different direction.
it's weird because my Animal Crossing video is not about coronavirus at all, but then it does come into it quite a lot. I mean, we're talking about like
Mm,
economics quite a lot of it, and the sort of economics of the turnip market.
yeah.
But then it ends up coming into it like so. It's sort of weirdly everywhere and nowhere. It's
Yeah.
um, which is yeah, it's just become a weird normal, hasn't it? Um, uh,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about when we're all let back out again.
I know. I don't think I can't live on the outside.
Yeah,
I've become fully institutionalized. It's going to take a while to reintegrate into society.
I went to the supermarket, I went to Tesco, and a friend had picked up some work there, and I saw him there, and I was like, I have not seen someone I know not on a screen
Mm.
for so long that this is really bizarre.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was like, I was like, hello, how are you? Oh, yeah, like,
Yeah.
yeah, like, um, and then I was like, this is odd. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, trained out of
Yeah.
it almost.
Yeah. Anyway, you asked me what channels I
Yeah,
watch on YouTube, and then we went off on a complete tangent. I can't even remember why, but I think I don't watch many video essay channels. So the ones that I watch that are video essay channels is like Innuendo Studios.
mm.
I really like ContraPoints, um, Curio, Big Joel,
Yeah,
Folding Ideas.
I really like Curie. I've not watched all of their stuff. I watched a few things,
Mhm.
but I feel like that's a under
Yeah.
celebrated, and maybe unless it's
Um,
become super celebrated since I last watched. I can't think what the last one I watched was, but I've really enjoyed some of their stuff.
mm,
Great Wolfenstein
yeah,
video,
I
I
think
believe.
they're probably gonna gain a lot of viewership. I think it's gonna be one of those channels that gains a lot of viewership suddenly.
Mm, the
And
right
they're
thing will
maybe
hit.
just approaching that point now. Lindsay Ellis,
Mm,
of course.
I feel like she's my like the person that I will drop everything to watch a video of for. I think. Um, and there's a few like I think last year in particular she had like a real run of the one about YouTube was
Mm,
great. I think
yeah.
particularly this is probably the platform I exist on most. I think
Mm,
I feel like I often feel like I use Twitter and I don't use Facebook at all, but like I
mm,
very much use
yeah.
Instagram to go. I've got a new video going out, or I go. I'm going to have to do an Instagram. Take a photo of me next to the thing, and I'm like, um,
Cool.
but YouTube feels like I sort of exist
Mm,
nowadays. It's got its fingers around me, and I exist in a weird way. So that was a really good uh, video, which like I've watched many times, which I don't tend to do with
yeah.
anything really.
Yeah, and similarly along those lines, Shannon Strucci's videos on parasocial relationships
Mm,
are the ones that I always recommend to everyone at any opportunity I have. And I'm like, it's 2 hours long, but please watch it.
I feel, and I think people are slightly better now, but I got not angry maybe, but the way in which after she brought out the video and it was incredible, um, and I probably didn't find it for quite some time,
Mm.
because I'm not super cool. But uh, the way lots of people then made videos, which were clearly in some way inspired by, like without mentioning it.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to see becoming more of a thing on YouTube, and sometimes it can be really hard to do it in a way that feels natural, but is a thing of like I picked this idea up from here, like not like Harvard
Mm.
referencing it necessarily, but
Yeah.
because that feels like, I mean, it felt like a very much a video that people that create videos particularly enjoyed.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that feels like one of those videos that really changed a lot of that really
Mm.
had a massive influence beyond possibly
Yeah.
the viewership and recognition that it got itself.
Yeah. It really like everyone talks about parasocial relationships now, and no one was talking about them before
Mm.
that video came out. So there's definitely a correlation, and I am going to say there's a causation.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like and it's almost the point where it's a bit passé now to be like,
Yeah.
is this a
Yeah.
parasocial relationship?
Yeah.
In fact, I
Yeah.
think at the time there was one of the memes with the butterfly on the hand. You know when
Oh
it's like
yeah.
the is this blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
with parasocial
Yeah.
relationships.
I
Um,
know. And then Browse Held High and H Bomber Guy are the
mm,
other. I'm just glancing over my video essay, like trying to pick out which of these channels are video essays. But like my favorite channels, because I was on a podcast last week and they specifically asked, like I knew they were going to ask before, like what are your YouTube recommendations? So I like specifically thought about what are my favorite channels, and I think Captain Disillusion is probably my favorite channel.
I've not watched much Captain Fusion. See, man, is that the silver guy?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
like half silver face. I love his videos so much, and it took me a while to get into them. Actually, I remember I saw one and I was like, oh yeah, that was quite good. And then I didn't watch any more, and then I saw another one like a year later, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember this channel. It's quite good. And I still didn't watch the rest of them, and I can't remember what it was. There was one of his videos like went viral like a while after it had been made. Um, and it suddenly like it already got quite a lot of views, but suddenly it got like YouTube was pushing it everywhere. Um, and it was at that it's like the rule of three. I've been exposed to it 3 times.
Yeah.
And at that point I was like, oh, maybe I like this channel. Maybe I should watch the other videos. And I watched them in like chronological order. And there's kind of like a to some extent a running narrative across
Okay.
across the channel. And
Patrick
so
Willems
there
does
are
that,
characters. Oh yeah,
where
I've
there's like a
that's
return
another
of.
yeah, that's another channel that I haven't really I've seen a couple of videos from.
There's,
Um,
there's
but I
some
think
really great
they
ones.
talk about stuff that I tend to not be that interested in.
Mm.
So
It's a lot of Marvel and a lot of
yeah,
um.
and
I,
I have no interest in Marvel, and I think that's what put me off. I need to get hooked in, like Lindsay Ellis talks about a lot of stuff that I don't care about, but I'm already
invested in
in
her.
the yeah, I'm already invested, and like I
Mm.
know because it's a video that she's made, I'm gonna get something out of it, even though I'm not familiar with or I don't care about
Mm.
this thing. Although I haven't actually finished her Hobbit videos because I have absolutely no interest in the Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings, and I know that's like her magnum opus with these
Yeah.
videos that she's on the Hobbit.
Although
And I've
to
watched
my mind
half
they're
of
not.
it.
To my mind they're not the. I don't know. There's more recent ones which I would be like, oh, this is so
Yeah,
much richer. Um.
yeah. The ones that she's made about YouTube, I think. Um,
And I
and
mean
I
that
can't.
possibly
And
reflects the fact.
she did one on Rent, which I loved,
Oh
but that
yeah,
was a
yeah.
while ago.
I wanted to make a Hamilton video at one point, and I was like, I feel like it's gonna be quite similar, so I won't. You know, when you're a bit like, I just feel like someone said the thing already, and I'm just
Yeah,
gonna be saying it again.
yeah. And I know she said that like for a while she's been talking about making a video on Hamilton because I was going to make a video on Hamilton and I was like, oh, I'll wait and see what Lindsay Ellis does first. Maybe I won't need to because she'll have
Mm,
said everything that needs to be said, and she still hasn't made it. So like I don't know. Like what I'm saying about the beginner's guide was previously like Hamilton was attached to that idea, and I've since separated it out into a separate idea. So maybe at some point I'll make a video on Hamilton. But I was waiting for Lindsay Ellis to make a video first.
I mean, it's coming out on streaming, so there's gonna be like
Yeah,
a moment. I feel, um,
yeah,
but I think
yeah.
there's
It's
a really
definitely worth waiting until I can get footage of it.
yeah. There was a really good special issue of a journal actually, all about Hamilton, which is really interesting. Which sort of took apart a bunch of things which I'd sort of. It's really interesting when you see something where you're like, oh, I'd kind of thought that as well. It makes very validating,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Um,
Yeah.
I think particularly the way one of the things that gets me is the it's often been interpreted as like a super feminist film, and it's got the big show, and it's got the big song where they I can't they're like look around,
Yeah.
um where
The
they, and they're
the
like
Schuyler sisters.
yeah, it's goes and they're like, oh, we're going to include women in the sequel, and then like
Yeah.
Peggy just disappears. Uh, one of them gets married to the protagonist, and the
Peggy's
other like
only in that song. She's got like 3 lines.
I'm hoping in watching it that it might become apparent. I don't know. Maybe she has a whole visual journey through the rest where she's there, but not singing.
I don't think so.
I think I might be disappointed. But and then yeah, and
But
then
I do
two of them
like
fall in love again
how Eliza is treated in the show,
and
and that
she
she
gets to
gets
frame
the
it.
last song and the last line. And I really like her arc.
Yeah, I love so much of it. Like I've listened to it so many times. I think it's like a
Yeah.
glorious, like it's just so well done. I think I often find the way it gets spoken, like I think I'm often as interested in the way things get spoken about as in the things themselves, which I think,
Yeah.
I don't know, the sort of cultural role that they end up
Mm.
playing as well as what
Yeah.
actually goes on stage, on screen, in
Yeah.
on pages.
Yeah. I mean, that was my whole sort of impetus for the Goose Game video. Is I was interested in more in the cultural reception of the game
Mm,
necessarily than the game itself. And it's the same with Beginner's Guide, that I'm mostly talking about the mental breakdown that everyone has in trying to talk about that game, and that's the thing that I'm interested in, and that it's impossible to talk about it without tying yourself in knots, and I'm interested in why that is, more
when's your
than
video coming out? How long have I got to play it before?
you've got time. I
Okay, I've got time.
today I reshuffled the whole script like a deck of cards. Now I have to rewrite the whole thing essentially. Like stuff that was I thought I'd written. I was like halfway through, like doing the final write up of it, and it all fell apart. I'm like, oh god, this now stuff at the beginning is at the end. Like it's a huge sections have just been cut out. Everything's moved around, and now I have to rewrite the whole thing. So I need to do that. Then I need to, because it's because of the nature of what it is, I'm going to need to make graphics. I've actually got a joke that I want to film something for, and I think I'm going to need to rig up either some kind of practical effect or special effect, maybe a combination of both, in order to get that to work. Projects really have a tendency to get away from me. This was meant to be a quick, easy video. You've definitely got time to play Beginner's Guide.
Okay, good.
I'm hoping it will come out mid-June, but late June is maybe more likely.
Likely. There's definitely something about like the hidden labor of making videos, where I think
Yeah.
people do understand that a lot goes into it, but the fact that that 20 minutes or whatever, 15 minutes is like days of writing, and then a lot, like a whole load of editing and reworking, and
Yeah.
which yeah, I think people kind of get, but it's probably still twice the amount that people think.
Yeah. There's like knowing it intellectually, and then there's experiencing it.
Mm,
And those are definitely two different things.
yeah, and I often think that the metaphor for it is, have you played Cuphead?
I haven't played it myself, but I am familiar
It's good.
with the
It's on
game.
Switch. It's on Switch, so you
Oh.
can do. But it's very much like you just have to do these levels again and again and again to work
Yeah.
out all the timing and and get it perfect, and also
Yeah.
have a bit of luck. And it often feels it often feels like it's a similar thing, or particularly my process. I think is I write a paragraph, then I'm like, that's rubbish. I'm going to write it again, and then I go, that's rubbish. I'm going to write it again,
Yeah.
and with a bit of luck
Yeah.
and a bit of getting a bit of learning. I was just saying that, yeah, but someone saying in the chat that like, the process of making video essays is really fulfilling, which I think it is as well. Like I don't
Yeah.
think most people would do it if it didn't also have the payoff of going,
Yeah.
I made a thing. Or sometimes
Yeah.
my last video, I was like, I made a thing and I'm pleased with it. Often I'm a bit like, I made a
Yeah.
thing
Often
at
it's
75% of
like
what I hoped it would be.
Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not the
It's
thing
like,
you
oh
initially
God,
imagine.
what have I created?
Is that thing of the? Have you seen the thing where it's the picture of the horse and it's like this is how it looked in my imagination, and then it's like
Yeah.
getting halfway through and it's like almost good, and then the rest
Yeah.
of it's rubbish. I think it's a bit like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
cool.
But
Well,
getting over it's the same in terms of like I think I can't remember if I put this in the video or not, but that I would look up tutorials on how to get past a certain section and see that, and someone would just do it immediately and perfectly, and I'm like, but that's what I'm doing. And it's really is just like muscle memory of
mm,
at some point you're just able to do it, and it's like I don't know how I'm doing it, but it's working now. And then once you crack it, you can just do it over and over again.
mm.
Such a good game. Love that game so much.
I'm gonna play it at some point. Uh, cool. Well, we've hit about an hour, so we might wrap on up. But
Wind down.
thank you so much for being up for doing this and having a chat. It's been a great, like, as I mean, I said at the beginning, like I like absolutely adore your videos. They're incredible, and I'm very much looking forward to the next one. Um, and yeah, if you're watching and you have not checked out Grace's videos, then do that now. You have some if you have
Yeah.
some afternoon slash evening or whatever time it is where you are left over. Um, I yeah, I can't think what to say after that. But thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, both you, Grace, and anyone that's watching. Yeah, so
All
if
people in the world.
if you're watching, thank you very much for watching. It's been a pleasure to share some time with you again. My hopefully at some point I'll have less hair. It's very lockdown hair. But yeah, I will be back with another one of these in a few weeks. I'm going to try and I've got my eyes on a couple of guests. I'm going to try and convince to come on and chat for a bit. But yeah,
Ensnare.
ensnare exactly. I mean, I'm very lucky so far. Everyone that was on my wish list has been up for it, which is nice. It turns out human beings are nice. That's the learning point for today. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you're watching, subscribe and that if you haven't. Yeah, and I will see you all on the internet somewhere shortly.